hello, Naomi. So amazing to talk to you today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Very happy to be here and be talking to you.
So starting off with like a fun question, what is your favorite romantic comedy?
This question is actually harder than it seems. I've seen so many rom-coms and they hold a very special place in my heart. But one that I love is Bend It Like Beckham. I have loved that rom-com since I was very young. It features a tomboyish soccer playing main character, and I identified with that character very closely growing up. And it was really cool to see a South Asian lead in a rom-com that early. So I would have to say that's one of my favorites. I can watch it anytime, anywhere.
Amazing. Yeah, and that totally plays into which we'll get into in a second, but the whole meet cute overarching umbrella of trying to really create a space for representation through rom-coms and just really diving into every possible avenue of them. So it's very exciting. And I guess you kind of touched upon this already, but can you tell us a bit about your life that led you to the creation of Meet Cute? Like, is there a special place that rom-coms have always held in your life, and what brought you to being such a young CEO of this amazing company?
Definitely. And I kind of took an untraditional path to become the founder of MeetCute. So growing up, I was kind of a STEM kid. I loved science, math. I actually majored in engineering in college, but then worked at a venture capital firm and really spent a lot of time diving into the business models behind media and entertainment, looking for an opportunity in the entertainment space that could be venture backable. And rom-coms specifically held a very special place in my heart because I've always been a consumer, an audience member of rom-coms. My dad and I would watch them at the end of busy weeks. For him, it was like escapism and this lightheartedness. And for me, it was always aspirational. And I loved watching two people that it seemed like they were destined to be together, go through this complicated journey. And it's a lot more about that journey than it is about the ending, because that is a lot more predictable in this storyline. So they've always held a special place in my heart. My family grew up watching them. And then I approached the creation of Meet Cute through a slightly different perspective, not having grown up in the entertainment industry or studying the entertainment industry, but instead studying, an engineering, from an engineering perspective and then a business perspective, how we can create a lot of these stories for an audience that wants more than is out there right now.
Absolutely. So going into your STEM background, which I do find so interesting to what the people who come from those like science backgrounds and math backgrounds and then segue into entertainment, especially you who's done it in such a major way. Is there anything that you've been surprised by in the entertainment world that has kind of been like, oh, you know what, I didn't see it that way, or that was surprising to me, or things that you found that you've brought into the entertainment world, which I guess you also sort of touched upon already, but things really just places where you think that Venn diagram really hits both in ways that surprise you and surprise others?
Definitely. I think that like bringing a new perspective to the industry has really helped to create a very different kind of media company at MeetCute, where it is a lot about the creative. We work with some of the most creative people, whether they're writers, producers, sound engineers, voice actors. They really bring these stories to life. But we've built out a process that allows for more and more of those voices to be heard in mainstream media and for us to bring them to center stage. And I think that that combination of both the creative and the content side meeting with the process and the I guess more like operational side of our business is that intersection of the Venn diagram that kind of is the sweet spot that we are building. And to take it back to kind of how my brain works, it really is like the left side of my brain and the right side of my brain merging into one. And that is the space that I find the most creativity in. And so bringing that into a company together, bringing the creative with the process, I think it's a really fun place to be building a business. It's a massive market, and we're doing it in a genre that brings a lot of people joy, especially in a time like this where people crave it and want more of that. And so I think that has honestly been the surprising part, is just like how much need for this type of storytelling there is, not just in audio, which is where we started, but in video, in text, in literally every single platform where people are spending time. There is a need for this type of content that acts as a release or a little bit of escapism, while still, you know, having some meat to it, which, and the meat is like seeing characters that you haven't seen before on main stage, seeing plots that you haven't interacted before, that freshness of romantic comedies that we're telling as a company is definitely hitting a nerve with our audience in a really good way.
Totally. And I think it's really admirable that the mission of the company, for those that don't know, though you should absolutely check it out if you're listening to this, is to really create inclusive stories and stories that everyone can see themselves in. So what would you say really drove you to make this the mission statement of MeetCute? And have there been any responses from listeners that have kind of, I don't know, validated the fact that you're doing this, that you're like, yeah, we got this, we're on the right path?
Definitely. So I'll start with the first part of that question, which is representation is baked into the business model of MeetCute because we work with so many different types of creators that come from so many different walks of life. First, a lot of our content is created in a remote way. And so we're able to work with people in many geographies, people with different backgrounds. We have filmmakers working on audio, and then we have people who have worked on Broadway making video content for us. And so it's just seeing things from a different perspective, I think often lends itself really nicely to creativity. And the model that we've created allows for more of that. And from a representation perspective, something that we say a lot at MeetCute is the full spectrum of love. And what that means to us is that love is an emotion or a concept that everyone in some way, shape, or form can understand. That's this universal thing that we all have experience around, whether it's a romantic love, whether it's love for your family or a sibling, love for a pet, love for a job or a place or a hobby. It's the emotions that release serotonin and that make us feel good. And so we just want to tap into that emotion in a very consistent way, no matter what type of content we're creating. And to us, that means having all these kind of new types of characters, settings, and narrative arcs that create relatability between different types of people, not because they necessarily have to look like the main character, but because they're going through something that resembles what the main character is going through. I've felt that emotion before, or I've been in that situation before. And that creates this connective tissue in society that we think is really powerful, and that entertainment as an industry can really help to drive. So, you know, it sounds like a really lofty goal, but I think like at the end of the day, the point of storytelling is to bring people together. And if we can do that through romantic comedies, then I think we're doing a really good job fulfilling our mission statement.
Absolutely. I have a bit of a follow-up question to something you said, because I think it's so interesting, because you're like, oh yeah, when we sit and we talk with all our team members about the full spectrum of love. It's kind of hitting me in this moment, the massive content you're generating all about love. So you're having these board meetings where you really dissect this thing that's so lofty and emotional. If you don't mind my asking, I know this is an interview, but how do you think that's changed your perspective on love in the world, or what it is, or has it?
It makes me very optimistic. I think that through these stories, it creates opportunities for audience members to notice smaller acts throughout their day that are little meet cute moments, like the way that your barista smiles at you, the way that you say thank you to your bus driver, the way that you might bump into someone randomly that could spark a conversation or a friendship or a relationship. I think that it forces people to kind of slow down and observe that. And the reason I know that is it's had that effect on me just by being around these stories more, talking about it more. Um, that is something that, like, you know, I would say even 3 or 4 years ago, before the company existed, I might not have been as attuned to, but today I think I'm a lot more aware of those moments in my life that actually were serendipitous and led to something else that I might not have seen before. So it makes me very optimistic for the future. And I think that if we can create that nugget of optimism for one listener, two listeners, hundreds of thousands of listeners, then we're putting that positivity into the world, and it's having a ripple effect on many people, even people who don't listen to our stories or watch our stories yet.
Absolutely. And I love that energy of the just the optimism coming through. And also this emphasis on, as the company is so named, the meet cutes, which goes into another question I have, which is meet cutes themselves tend to be very visual, and romantic comedies themselves very visual. It's, oh, you're running into a person. Oh, you like the classic, oh, they crash into each other and everything goes everywhere. What inspired you to create rom-coms in a podcast setting which has no visual, or would make like maybe make a wordless moment of like they glance at each other across the room a bit more difficult to navigate?
I think audio is a really powerful medium that narrative scripted storytelling hasn't fully tapped into. Um, Radio plays have existed for a long time, and they've been something that people, it's a very accessible way of consuming storytelling. When you're driving in your car, you can imagine like people sitting by the radio back in the day and listening to these stories either alone or with a friend or with family. And so what I love about audio is that it's a very intimate experience in that every person visualizes the story in a slightly different way. Say, for instance, you meet a best friend character in a rom-com, you might actually visualize your best friend who's like zany and has like crazy ideas and pushes you to do things in that character. Or the love interest, you might actually imagine is like the hot guy that you saw at the airport recently playing that main character. And so something that comes out of audio is that every person gets to become their own director or their own producer in a way, directing the rom-com that's playing out in their head. So it actually, I think, brings you closer to the characters through dialogue, through sound effects that really can build a universe around you in a really authentic way, because it's authentic to you. And when I think about audio, I think, you know, it's such a personal experience. Like no one else knows what you're listening to or why you chose to listen to that. It's specific to you in that moment. And so I think it's intimate, I think it's authentic, and I think it's accessible. And those, I think, are three good reasons to be working on storytelling in this medium.
Totally. And I think you're so right about that, because it's the same thing as reading, where a lot of times when books are adapted to the screen, people get frustrated by the actors cast. It's like, that's not who I cast in my head. But it through the podcast, it allows you to really visualize it within the confines of your own life and make it very real for you, which is it's really awesome all around. And to do it with the rom-com is so interesting, because hot take, not everyone can listen to true crime. It's just not everyone's thing.
I get very anxious when I listen to true crime or horror. So I had to be building in a genre that was happier and feel good, still with like tension and conflict and everything that, you know, makes for a good story, but know exactly what the ending was going to be because I knew it was going to make me feel good. So I agree with you.
100%. But something else that's interesting about this, visualizing it yourself and kind of being able to embody it and make it real within your own life as a single individual, is that right after, I believe a month after MeetCute was getting started, the pandemic hit in a pretty significant way. And again, rom-coms are all about, oh, physical interaction, like the romance that happens between two people. Did you find any weird, like, surprise benefits that came, not to make light of the pandemic as a whole, but it's like any surprise benefits that came out of a super trying time?
Definitely. I again, like not to make light of the pandemic, but there were silver linings for MeetCute and the genre that we were working in. A lot of podcasting took a hit in the pandemic because a lot of podcasting is news and talk show and people weren't commuting as much. And we never saw listenership of MeetCute dip. In fact, every month it's just grown in terms of the audience. I think a big reason for that is because of the emotional connection that people feel to the stories. We were also able to continue producing just as much content in the pandemic, given our medium, given our process. And that was something that I think stood out in media and entertainment at that time. Um, the other thing I'll say about audio is that it's really accessible. So we saw a lot of people lean into listening in the morning hours and the afternoon hours when they were getting their kids ready for school, getting ready for Zoom meetings, making lunch at home. And so there were it was a nice little break that people could, kind of decide when was their time to listen or watch short videos and get to take a break from kind of the monotony and the routine of the pandemic and the way that it created kind of rituals for a lot of us. So definitely a trying time. And I think because we were making this joyful, lighter content, it lent itself really nicely to being a part of people's routines, and really like finding a place in mental health rituals that people did every single day, whether it was like going on a walk, making yourself coffee in the morning. MeetCute was kind of there and part of it for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And you said just now, like the importance of having this kind of optimistic spirit in this time, or just this thing that brings joy. I'm a massive rom-com fan myself, which I'm sure is obvious by now, but rom-coms always get this reputation for being really like, silly or fluffy, but you are really building this whole empire off of them, and they're bringing people something. Like you've been named one of the 2022's Forbes 30 under 30, which congratulations, that's insanely impressive. What do you think the power of rom-com is, both within your own life and within the modern world?
I think the power of rom-coms is really to, one, make people happy and spread optimism and joy the same way that it's done in my own life. Two, to package really complex social issues, dynamics between people, interpersonal issues, growth of a character in a package that is recognizable and is consistent, and also something that doesn't necessarily make people feel like it's overly prescriptive or that they have to be engaging with it. Instead, it's something that they want to be engaging with. A really good example is taking something like a character that might be less confident at the beginning of a story, and the end of the story, the journey is completed where that character goes through some kind of transformation or shift where they realize that like before they can love someone else, they have to love themselves. And if that character can strike a nerve with the audience, who might also be going through the same anxieties or self-deprecation or not being confident, and lead to something more positive in that person's life, I think we can confidently say that stories have the power to do that. And we want MeetCute to have that impact on people's lives. So we don't sit there and say like, let's teach this moral through the story, or let's make sure that we address this issue. But it just, in working with so many incredible writers that are observing the world around them, and then with directors and producers and engineers, sound engineers and voice actors who have their own experiences and their own unique perspective. Just in working with all those people, we're able to infuse those perspectives and experiences into storytelling in a way that's really real, and that can allow for more connectivity between a person and a character, or a journey or an arc that they might be going through or might be experiencing. And I think that that is like really the key to storytelling that we want to tap into through the romantic comedy, which is a very well-loved genre. There is obviously a really incredible community to be built here, and MeetCute is really trying to become that community around our content and our storytelling for people to create connection with each other.
Totally. And I think it really is doing that. It's creating this bridge among people that's just very happy and optimistic, especially when things can be very dark. A lot of the time, it's like, this is just a nice thing to do. And speaking to the power of them more, both as the subject matter we agree is far more powerful than people give it credit for, the MeetCute podcasts specifically are growing in power. You have some incredible names that are working on your projects, like Bridgerton's Charithra Chandran is cast in your upcoming podcast, A Mid-Semester Night's Dream. So especially coming off the heels of Bridgerton's success, you're definitely going to be having more listeners than you've ever had before. What do you think the future of your company looks like, knowing that you're kind of armed with this powerhouse team?
Definitely. We're really excited to be bringing more star power into MeetCute stories and to be uplifting voices that are up and coming in entertainment, to really be working with the most creative people that have a perspective and want to be in iconic rom-coms that are defining this next generation. So Charithra's story in September, we're very excited about it. A Mid-Semester Night's Dream is our take on A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare. And it's a modern retelling. So we kind of are reinventing it. Charithra plays a lead role in this love square that takes place. There's an element of magical realism in it. You'll see the parallels, if you know the original play, to Oberon and Puck coming out in the modern retelling. We couldn't be more excited about it. And we're excited to keep taking some of these bigger swings to tell stories that people really get lost in and want more and more of. At the end of the day, we want to create a connection with our audience that long outlasts an individual series or show, but grows into like a trust that's built between our brand and the people that engage with our content. So the future of the company is tell really good stories and build a community around those stories that people grow to love.
And I think you're very much on, you're doing it now. And even with, especially Mid-Semester's Night Dream, taking Shakespeare and turning it into like those modern high school or college age rom-coms, like She's the Man, 10 Things I Hate About You. Like that's a rom-com genre in and of itself. So what particularly drew you to this story?
I think it's exactly that. It's a very fresh take on a story as old as time. And I think that there is something really cool about reimagining it as a modern rom-com where you have characters that understand today's social dynamics, and you have you're able to cast people who audiences today would recognize, and really build out a more, I guess, approachable version of those stories. Like 10 Things I Hate About You, She's the Man, most recently Fire Island as a modern retelling of Pride and Prejudice. These are stories that we love, and we know the plot, but we want to see it play out for an audience today and with characters that we can relate to today. And so that is the key with this one, and we're very excited to share it with audiences come September.
And we are excited to hear it. Okay, so we are winding down on time. So I do have one last question for you. So every good rom-com queen has one, and you're obviously among the rom-com royalty. What is your favorite rom-com trope?
My favorite rom-com trope is enemies to lovers. I love seeing two people that don't get along, kind of feisty, keep undercutting each other, trying to get the same job, trying to impress the same people, whatever it may be, fall in love. And I think that the story that's coming to mind right now is The Proposal with Sandra Bullock. And she is just this badass boss working at a big publishing company. And it's just like such a good story. You see her in like high heel Louboutins trying to like really impress this family in Alaska. It's just so funny, lends itself to so many hilarious moments. And I love how that trope can really dial up the comedy because of how at ends and at odds these characters are with each other. So I'd probably say enemies to lovers is my favorite trope.
Absolutely, 1000% agree. Also, The Proposal, iconic movie. Sandra Bullock, Ryan Reynolds, Betty White, like, come on.
Iconic, exactly.
It's brilliant. And then there are all the outtakes of Ryan Reynolds and Betty White bullying each other, which we don't have time to get into here, but honestly, they're so delightful.
I totally agree. The bloopers from rom-coms can be so funny because it's just like the awkwardest scenes getting set up. So we can offline about that.
It'll be amazing. Oh my gosh. But yes, before we go, is there anything else you would like to promote? Any social media, anything coming up?
Definitely. Well, you should definitely check out our social media. We're on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts. We're releasing a lot of new short video shows that I think people will really fall in love with and get excited about. So follow us there. Listen to MeetCute on any podcast platform. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And I think that that's it for now. And definitely check out A Mid-Semester Night's Dream in September.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much for talking to me today. This was great.
Thank you so much. This was so fun, Carly. Great to hang out.